Assalamu alaikum everyone. In this episode of Inspirational Muslims, I will be interviewing Amena Khan. Amina is an established British social media influencer and businesswoman. She has presented on TV and has had appearances in nationwide print, digital, billboard and TV campaigns. Amina is the owner and brand ambassador of Pearl Daisy, a UK-based modest fashion brand which was founded 10 years ago with the vision to help women gain confidence through fashion with access to numerous resources and a community of like-minded individuals. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Amina.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Thank you so much for making the time to speak with us today.
No problemo. Any excuse for a coffee?
So, Sister Amina, a lot of the audience watching, including myself, we know you're there, mashallah, you're an influencer, but I want to hear from yourself. How would you describe yourself in where you are at the stage of your life you're in at the moment, and what are you focusing on?
So I would definitely say that I am an influencer in the traditional sense of the word. But beyond that, I also consider myself to be an entrepreneur. And I've done a bit of TV presenting. So am I a jack of all trades, Rahat? Maybe?
I think so.
Jill of all trades?
I think so. Because you also, mashallah, you're a mum. You're a wife. You have a couple of kids. You're juggling so many different things at the same time as being an influencer, and inspiring so many people out there. So how do you do that? How do you manage to do fit everything in terms of balancing that life balance, where you are an influencer and you're also a wife and a mother? How does that work out?
Well, I think that it's about balance, and it's about finding the right balance in how it suits you and what your perspective is on life.
Yes.
So for me, my role as a mum is my most important role. In fact, it's as important as my role as a wife.
Yes.
But I'm also a sister, I'm a friend. And so the roles that I hold, which are more human relationship roles, they mean a lot to me. And I'm lucky enough that the job that I have and the other ways that we described me happens to kind of fit into that role where I have a level of human connection with people.
Yeah. No, I completely resonate with that, and that's something we all know of you in terms of the human connection you have to be able to connect with people at all different types of audiences.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've achieved a lot in your life since you've been, not only as in your personal life, but as an influencer, as an inspirational Muslim. Amongst your achievements, what would you say for you it has been your greatest achievement to date that is close to your heart?
Oh, that's a good one. There's been so many. Okay, in this field, I think if we're thinking about the capacity of my work, I think that when I saw myself on TV and on billboards, I think that to me was the biggest achievement that I had set in my mind when I started off doing this and taking this seriously as a job. So that to me was a huge achievement, a huge personal achievement, massive dream come true. And as far as I'm concerned, I've defied the odds, because I think there was that little kind of voice of self-doubt in my mind. As big as your dream is, there is always that small voice of self-doubt. And I think that when the reality of how much work I was getting really came to light, it hit me that this is a big achievement. And so why not acknowledge that and celebrate that? Because I think often also in this field, but also particularly as women who, and I know that a lot of business women will be able to relate to this, particularly when we are running our businesses and having all these high expectations of ourselves and setting these millions of goals, whilst also juggling motherhood or whatever it is. A lot of women are carers for dependents. Whilst we do that, I think sometimes when we achieve things, we don't really bask in the glory of it as we should. And we should celebrate that, and we should acknowledge the things that we've achieved. Because not only because it spurs us on, but also it's a human thing to do. Everyone desires that.
Absolutely. That's very well articulated. In fact, that reminds me of one of the campaigns that you done. I believe it was this year. Believe in You.
Mm-hmm.
Believe in You.
Last
campaign.
year.
Last year.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit more about that, because I feel that was a very strong, very powerful, very much needed campaign.
Listen, not to toot my own horn, but that's been my favourite campaign that I've worked on to date. It's my own campaign. Well, the idea behind it was to bring together a diverse group of women, truly diverse in their experience, in what they do for a living, as well as all the physical appearances, to bring them together to share a part of their story that I felt was interesting and that could resonate with other women. Because ultimately, in order for us as human beings to get on with each other, we have to humanize each other. We have to see each other as being one and the same. It's the opposite of otherizing. And so story is an incredibly powerful thing to build connection between human beings. And so through this campaign, I wanted to bring together these women who have these fascinating, inspiring stories to tell, to share that part of themselves. And I am so honored that they said yes and they decided to be a part of the campaign. And I think that it really did touch a lot of hearts. And for me, certainly, it's been one of the highlights for me as the owner of Pearl Daisy, because it was a campaign done on Pearl Daisy on the website.
Yeah, it was definitely something that went viral, and so many people, so many sisters I know were referring to that campaign.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so nice.
So mashallah. So
I love getting that feedback.
Yeah. So you've probably gone through so many challenges to date. Of course, in the journey that you've been in, this amazing journey, anytime someone sets out to do something amazing, something out of the ordinary, to get out there for the betterment of humanity, you're faced with challenges. What would you say has been your biggest challenge to date?
In this job? Or in life in general?
Well, that's interesting. So I would say, yeah.
See, I do draw that line.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That helps me.
Yeah, that's interesting to say that.
There is a level of fluidity that I believe we have in what we do and who we are. There has to be, in order for you to be authentic, for that to kind of seep through. But I do draw that line between my personal achievements and my work achievements, because then there'd be too many, and they're not two competing things. They work kind of symbiotically. So yeah, that's why I like to clarify that.
No, that's a good one. So let's do both, and so let's start with for what you're comfortable sharing in terms of your own personal perspective. What has been your challenge, the biggest challenge today?
My greatest challenge, personally, has been to awaken out of what I believe was a trance state that I was in for many, many years. I was still myself, but I was kind of half asleep.
Interesting.
And so in order to wake up from that, it's not been a pretty or easy or always easy to stomach kind of experience, but it's been a necessary one. And so the challenge of that has probably been the biggest challenge that I've faced my entire life. But it had to be faced, because otherwise I wouldn't overcome all of the things that were holding me back throughout my life. So I'm a big believer in digging deep into your own heart, uncovering who you are, and to kind of come back home to yourself. I believe that children are great at being themselves. If you've ever been around kids, and I learn this from my kids all the time, like they are my biggest teachers, genuinely. Children are great at knowing who they are and what they want, and I think that a large part of that is because, of course, their innocence, but also, in my opinion, the way that I believe my faith to be, they're also closer to God. They're, in terms of the timeline, they were in their primordial state much sooner than we were, if that makes sense. And so they have that closeness. And I believe, as we grow up, we kind of get distracted by life,
Of course, yeah.
which is normal and it's human. I don't think anyone can not be distracted by life. We accumulate a great deal of pain and wounds and suffering, emotional as well as physical. And so all of that pushes us away from who we are. And so in order to come back to ourselves, we have to go through this painstaking process of kind of peeling back and rediscovering who we are. So
No,
That's the nutshell version.
no, no, it's very well articulate. I think
You don't want the long version, Rahat.
I think many of us think that, but I think you articulated very well. It's very hard sometimes to express how you just expressed it in terms of the self-discovery. In fact, just segue into that. So that's from the personal perspective, and I know from the business perspective, you've had many challenges. But before we move on to the greatest business challenge, and in terms of your entrepreneurial journey, what role do you feel Dean played in your life for this self-discovery? Like, what role do you feel it plays to make you in the self-discovery journey that you had to overcome your
I think that the simplest way I can put it is that I began to value my life and to value myself, self with a capital S. And I began to value it purely because I realized, had that aha moment, as you do when you have that epiphany, when you're down in the dumps, and you realize that I wasn't created in vain. So God created me because He loves me. And so that love was enough. It was at times the only string that I was holding on to. String, right? And so I think that has been the role that Dean has played.
It's very, very
Did you want me to talk about hijab?
No. That's no. Actually,
people normally poke at that.
No. What you spoke about now actually reminds me of one of Allah's names, which is Al-Wadud. He's the most loving. So I think it's really nicely articulated what you just said, and I'm sure it will resonate with a lot of the audience. So in terms of entrepreneurial journey as an influencer, what has been your biggest challenge to date, and how did you overcome this?
One of the biggest challenges has been to value myself and what I do. Obviously, being in a niche market, which is actually a really good thing, can be a very lucrative thing, but it can also be a thing that can often see you being met with a lot of no's.
Of course,
and we don't have enough budget.
Yeah.
So, and that can really, you can take a big knock from that. And so to overcome that,
sounds disheartening.
lack of worth, has been a big challenge. And just finding my own feet and really figuring out for myself who I am, what I stand for, what I can bring to the table, and how valuable I am and what I'm bringing. And so that's taught me a very, exactly. And so it's really taught me to become a better businesswoman, actually. I negotiate better. And I, ironically enough, don't try as hard because I'm more self-assured.
You're not really seeking anymore the validation that people seek out all the time. I think that's a very strong point you just made there, actually. Yeah.
And then obviously that's influence. And then in terms of being a businesswoman, having my own businesses, so with Pearl Daisy and with Ardere, the biggest challenge for me was to get my time management right and to get that balance right, because I was a workaholic, like really, I'm a recovering workaholic, let's just say, yeah. Combine that with a perfectionist, you've got a very dangerous combination of someone who's going to just like self-destruct, because that's just not a viable way to live your life. And so it's been really hard for me to find that balance with my companies, with the things actually that I care a lot about and I am incredibly passionate about. So I can very easily just get lost in that. So that's been a challenge, and it's a daily challenge actually. I work on it every day as a mum, but it's getting better, which is what matters.
Yeah. Which segues nicely into my next question, which is, how do you deal with stress? We all have different ways of coping with stress and different mechanisms. What's Amina's way, and what would you advise others as well?
Sorry, I'm getting lost in the song. Okay, deep breathing, mindfulness, and being present in my body.
Interesting.
Oh my God, I had like the best driving lesson yesterday.
Yeah.
Because I did breathing exercises right before. And my driving instructor, Phil, he was like, it's like a different driver today. What happened? I said, Phil, I did breathing exercises, a bit of meditation right before my lesson today, just as an experiment to see what happens. And I did my affirmations. I do positive affirmations. that helps me to combat stress.
That's fantastic. That really struck a chord with me because I think I've seen some talks on mindfulness and on breathing exercise and TED Talks, and the effect it has.
Oh my
amazing.
God.
SubhanAllah.
I learned the power of it when I was in labour, and I
Yeah.
used just breathing
Yeah.
as my pain relief.
Yeah. There's
Wow.
so much,
Like, it's all in here.
so much
Everything
wisdom.
we need is already here.
That's
So cool.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. So we talked about how you deal with stress, and I think that's very good advice you just gave there. Amina, what motivates you in doing what you do every day? Every day you get up, you're a focused individual. You look after your family. You're inspiring many people as well. You are living your life, and you're actually inspiring others as well. What keeps you motivated? What keeps Amina motivated?
Two things. Firstly, gratitude. I wake up every day and I try and find the things that I'm grateful for. And they are I always deliberately think of the less obvious, smaller things that other people wouldn't look at me and think, wow, isn't that so cool? I don't focus on those things. I focus on my very personal, small day-to-day things. So gratitude is an incredibly important thing in my life. Yeah. Second thing is I have a lot of love to give to the people around me, to the people that I care about. And that's connected to the fact that I have love for myself now. So I have this reserve. And so what motivates me is the fact that if you like to think, in business terms, I invest into my reserve. I make sure that there is time that I give to myself, and I give time to the things that I love that give me peace, like inner peace, and all the things that allow me to recharge, recoup.
That's so important.
Yeah. And so when I add to that bank of love, I have a lot of it to give. And so I'm motivated to get out there, do what I need to do, provide for my family, be with my kids, be with my husband.
Again, that's a proper gem you just dropped there in terms of investing in yourself, but then you're able to give more of who you are, of the love that you want to share with people. I think a lot of us forget to invest in ourselves.
Well, we rely on others to fill that well for us, that love well. We rely on our partners and our mentors and our whoever's to do that for us. Yeah. But that's not sustainable. That will eventually run out. You can't rely on anybody else to make you feel well. It can help, support absolutely helps, but it's not that permanent, solid thing that you can turn to. Only you can build that for you.
Sustainable, it's not sustainable. It's very interesting.
We do that, right? We get lazy. We expect other people to. And so that's why you have to be careful with who you surround yourself with.
Yeah, absolutely. That's another thing, actually, that we need to be cognizant of. It's a good reminder. I want to ask you, in life we have so many role models that come in our life at different stages, But there's certain people who are prevalent, throughout our life. Sometimes they leave a mark on you. Who would you say has been your most prevalent role models in your life to date?
It's been a few people. Personal role models, yeah.
Personal role models who shaped and influenced you and people you are inspired by.
Well, there's celebrities that are role models for me, for sure. In terms of personal, there's been a couple of individuals who have been family to me. Like, they became family for me at a time when I thought that I was completely alone. And they're people that I met, in my teenage years, at uni, and these people were just very simple in their love and in their unconditional acceptance of who I was as somebody who felt pretty lost a lot of the time.
That's very powerful, isn't it? Unconditional love is not that common. Yeah,
and they taught me to love without judgment as well. And that's been the thing that has inspired me and that I often think about when I meet people that are different to me, or people that I can sense they're in pain. And I'm inspired by those individuals in the past who gave me just a little bit of support and unconditional love. And that just kept me hanging in there. Ultimately, you never know who you're talking to. You could be talking to somebody who's just hanging in there. You could be talking to somebody who's had the worst day of their life, but they look completely fine to you. I've learned compassion and empathy, and I could only have learned that actually through the people that I turned to, that had happened upon my path, but also because of the hardship. So I do believe that often, sometimes it's hard to see why things happen, but they are also necessary in order for you to become who you are. I say thank you for the hard times. And same goes for business. You know how business is, Rahat. You make money and you lose money.
Absolutely.
And when you lose that money,
yeah,
because me and Hubsy say this all the time, when you lose that money, it can hurt. Oh my God, it's like a real thing. Especially when, you're reliant on it. Not just that, you've got dependents.
Yeah.
So it can be really hard, but at the end of the day, there are lessons to be learned, and it's part and parcel of business and of being human.
It's so important, like you said, to apply that positive lens to life, and even when you go through ups and downs.
Not fake positive, yeah. Sometimes you have that down day, and you got to be able to live it.
Yeah, you got to let it.
You don't necessarily have to go on social media and advertise it. That's not what I mean. I mean, live it. Stop denying yourself the feelings that you naturally have in your body. If you feel sad, be sad. If you feel angry, be angry, as long as you're not hurting people in a fit of rage.
That's really
But
cool, yeah.
you should be allowed to process your feelings. And so when I say positive, I mean, find the positivity in the end, but it doesn't mean that you're devoid of sadness. You're not like Sue Sunshine all the time. You can have your bad days.
Yeah, exactly. That's a very, very strong point.
In fact, that keeps you more human.
Absolutely.
The more you deny in yourself, the more harm you're doing to yourself.
That's a very strong point, actually. That's a very good one, mashallah.
How did we even get onto that topic? I don't know. Sorry. I meander. Don't give me too much space. There'll be a lot of editing on this.
So, I wanted to ask you as well. So, this is a question I love to ask because it really gets people thinking, and it's very interesting what people come back with on this particular question. If you could go back to the former 16-year-old self, the former 16-year-old Amina, what would you advise her?
"16, right, just before GCSEs, I would say, don't worry so much, sweetheart, because you're going to pass with flying colours. You're not going to get the E that you were predicted. You're going to hit those A stars, baby." And I would also say to her that there are going to be so many hardships and rude awakenings and so much pain that you're going to go through especially in the next few years. But just remember that you'll be okay in the end. You just have to hold on to that hope and know that you're going to be okay in the end. That's what I would do. Don't worry about it. My diary is filled with the most self-deprecating, negative things. And I think that's what I needed. That's what I needed to hear. Everything's going to be okay.
Everything's going to be okay. Wow. So, Amina, this has been an amazing, insightful interview, and I think we can probably do a much longer podcast. One day we'll go into some of the other topics. But for the audience, what is the best way for them to reach out to you and you on social media? And also, in fact, I'm sure a lot of people maybe will be seeking out your advice in terms of maybe potentially mentorship or some sort of guidance, because I'm sure you have a lot of people whose hearts you've touched over the years. Mm-hmm. So what's the best way they can reach out to you?
I'm on social media. So I'm on Instagram with my name, Amena Khan. I'm on Twitter, Amena Official. I am on Facebook under Pal Daisy. My name is Amena though. It's not Pal Daisy. People thought my name was Pal Daisy. That's about it.
Perfect. So, Jazakallah khair so much for making the time for this very insightful, very deep interview, which I think is going to really...
Thank you for taking the time and coming all the way down here.
No, it's my pleasure, and I think this will really help the audience, and I think it will resonate with a lot of the people watching. So, Jazakallah khair, Sister Amina. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the interview. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell notification so you're alerted as we upload more inspirational Muslim videos.